Listen, I can't understand you. You keep mumbling. If you don't talk a little bit clearer and sound like you're making some sense, I'ma have to hit you. You understand? What was that? Hit him. Oh God, 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 oh my God, oh 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 God, oh 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 God, oh 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 God, oh God, oh God. They said the city got the sound back. You getting money, making movies, I'm the soundtrack. They say you hating the minute you say it sound whack. Guess they had enough of me pointing out how these clowns act. The tough lookers get put in that slow cooker. You gon' hate it when you find out your sugar somebody hooker. Got the shot so I took it, bet you thought I would miss. And you was tighter than the pop from everybody hate Chris. With this, I drew the line and as soon as a nigga cross it, come with some consequences, better have reinforcements. Nigga, we jump mans and I ain't talking about Jordans. I think it's wise to reevaluate what's important. This how I feel and I promise you I'm not hating, but I'm not understanding what half of these niggas saying. And to the radio for considering what you playing. I swear to God, better get me up to that station. I'm ready. Oh God, oh. I tell him I want the guns, not the butter like I'm Ving Rhames. I gotta be an animal to get it like I'm Ving Rhames. Boy, still a baby, I'm Ving Rhames. Plus you not a Don or a king, you just acting like you Ving Rhames. Niggas left me for dead, thought it was over. Been over the exposure, so now I'm looking for closure. Fuck stooping to your level, I'm headed for 7 lower. Back him down, tell a nigga don't run like Casanova. He got a gun. I'm out of patience, now it's the time for winning. Listen, you ain't fresher, don't tell me to wait a minute. Nigga, I need it now for my baby, I gotta get it. I ain't skipping on that race, they gon' hate to see me up in it. No, you hate it. You see me creeping, you viewing it from the rear. It says I'm a lot closer than what I seem to appear. And you don't have a clue what it took to get me right here. But if you think it was easy, let's see you step in this pair. I play up top, they try to block me like the Kimbe. The rib shot, the middle weak like a Wednesday. I'm in the doors, 1 foot like I'm Kente. Trying to stir up a frenzy, you know they wanna prevent me. Stop hating, but I spit that kind of shit that keep us unified. I put the touch on every line like a suicide. And if you wake up and you thanking God that you alive, then we relate because we all miss a few that died. Oh God, 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 oh my God, oh 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 God, oh 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 God, oh 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 God, oh God, oh God. This is business, got that bag on your head. I tell them when they grab you to put that bag on your head. I remember playing tag, they would count to 10 and you fled. Nowadays when they tag you, it mean that a nigga dead. What's the definition of mountains that can't move? That mean a nigga gave up, but I got something to prove. I'm playing in the game where niggas fuck with them rules. Might have took a couple of losses, but still refusing to lose. The government cheese brought a nigga to his knees. I was praying to the Lord with the hopes of a better feed. I grew up in an era where all you needed was these. And if you threw him up, then you better make sure he bleed. I feel like 23 with Russell in front of me. Yeah, we on the same court, but we not in the same league. They used to treat a nigga like I was nothing to see. So now them same niggas ain't getting nothing for free. Hey up. Oh God, 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 oh my God, oh 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 God, oh 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 God, oh 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 God, oh God, oh God.
The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of cultured brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation, born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly, uses his ears for the good to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S Street Media. This is your brother, the Lone Low Life, with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living, stepping in score, Sunia's Allah, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And we are on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media. Every intrigue will have its own show. Every incredible thought will have its own episode. And every timeless insight will be archived. Yeah, so we're back for another episode. This episode is what I was cluing into on the last episode we had with a great episode with Timeless Truths Soulless on his new project, Soul Controller. But what is this show about? Just in case you're not really paying attention. This is about the hip-hop writer element. This is a show chronicling my reality as one of the pioneers of this element in hip-hop. Not merely a journalist that is writing about the music and culture and reality, but also injecting his own art to it. So these pieces on the culture are also art pieces on the culture. And you can find the majority of this work on premierhiphop.com. But now you can find some of this work that I've been doing recently in One World magazine, a physical magazine that's going to have its own availability in purchase, digital purchase as well. I think it'll be a PDF. I'm not sure just yet, but I got a nice piece on my work with Classic Storm Radio and my brother DJ Toshi. We're actually getting close to doing our 250th episode. I think I was around for about the last 50 of those, you know what I mean? You know, Toshi's been doing those since the 2000s, though, so he's a Dark Ages champion. Dark Ages champion. You know what I mean? When music sucked, he was giving music, you know what I mean? But check this. We got One World magazine, West Coast shit, okay? So don't blame me on their grades. They like West Coast shit, though. They like, my brothers out there like Caesar, they're like hand clap snares OD, so don't get mad at me about that shit, you know what I mean? And they still sample Parliament like it didn't happen yet, you know what I mean? But we still got love for them, you know? And by the way, don't get lost in Parliament Funkadelic samples. That's what happened to Outkast and shit. You know, start wearing a dress, though, like it's regular wear, you know what I mean? But when premierhiphop.com, if it goes down, if it goes up, that's just because I get annoyed with everybody reading stuff, and I just want you to feel some kind of loss. So we try to upgrade our servers every now and then. But more pieces. By the way, if you see the flow of the way I've been writing, I've been getting so many good New York brothers in the studio that I really try to write reviews and art and science on music reviews on artists that aren't in the borough here, you know, in the boroughs, in the surrounding area and stuff. You know, so that's why I wrote about Nomadic out in Miami, you know what I mean? Which is, I'm going to do it again today, but, you know, my theory is that music goes to die in Miami, especially Latin music. That's where it goes to die. It's like these musical elephants, though. You know, they get tired, they get drawn out, they get tired of the industry and shit. Like, if Lauryn Hill was Cuban, she would be one of those elephants. She would just march into Miami because it hasn't made a record since 2000, and she would just collapse and just regress there. But I said that Thurston Howell III had like some kind of immunity, and it's clearly spread to my brothers like Louie Lou, peace to God, and it spread to other brothers, right? Look out for Crimson Gods. But I don't know. My theory's really getting questioned. It's gonna be under some scrutiny now. I feel like fucking Einstein when he said he got tight at quantum theory, and he said God don't play dice. He was getting tight because his shit wasn't working. But the more I say this shit, the more people disprove it, though. So maybe I'm helping Miami. You know what I mean? I might be helping Miami, though. But I'm not playing none of that Estefan shit. You know what I mean? No conga line here. But the main joy in this writing is art on art. You know, I try to write art on art. And since I got the God here, I'm going to introduce him in a few. This is a piece I wrote recently, and because I got the God here, I wanted to get a little metaphysical, artistic. So this is a piece that I just published. I don't have a title for it, though, so we'll just call it whatever. That's what we're going to call the shit, whatever in my head. Yeah, whatever, yeah. Red Man Part 2, whatever Part 2, Red Man. But it went like this. Mantras in the mire of the mission. Curriculums awarded to those suspending beliefs in all beliefs. To disrespect told tales is a platform towards education building, mind to word, leaving the maya of minding mere words. The orchid world of ascetic skeptics, feeding in the fast and reading ham out the Psalms. See, Record Enlightenment, Elimination of the Ego was the hit single. Knowledge of Self was the classic album. The Garments are another rumpled Grammy, and any sales, followers, and praises tell of a wisdom as sullied as a spilt henny or imbibed bourbon. So the journey embarked on Yogananda tours. Gandhi made his own search in the merch, and them Theosophos lost the mystery when Krishnamurti went solo. Wonder it all as the Bao Ding swirls the thoughts through the pen of Lao Gong's chamber, signed to the imprint in the heart of the mind. The label, arm, leg, arm, supreme head, breaches the studio to the stage, preparation and performance. So journey through the liner notes for the layman or the lyric sheets for the disciples. Man is mind, the thought is the tool, the universe is the build. A story of the wavicle, where the black parts and the dark waves laugh when the other man watch. Black is the melanin everywhere, dark is the filled canvas ever filling. The maker and the owner, Allah say. The observer is the observed, say Jay Krish. So the observation is, the creator is in his own creation, Sunya's bin say. But all still mired in the mission of the mantra, marking the Manhattan, moonlight in the soul, manifesting these Mecca matins. So that actually was a piece I spread out to a piece I wrote for Nomadic's album, The Journey. And you know, Nomadic went very metaphysical on a lot of cuts, so I thought I'd write something that matched that. But all of this metaphysical depth, all of this helps to introduce a thought I just had thinking about my brother, who is my guest today. You know, he's family. And I was thinking this, right? I always have these thoughts. It's been my main theme, a major theme, that the 90s were that classic era. You know, the 80s, and the 80s were the pioneer era. 90s was the classic, fruition of it. The 2000s was those dark ages where we saw a lot of fake shit blow up. We saw the media give the accolades that were deserving of the new, the wrong new, and didn't really accept or deliberately tried to push out the old legend, the old aging legends of the 90s. You know, what we have to do is look through some of the source reviews of albums by Public Enemy and others, the way they just would toss away and disrespect some of the legends of the 90s and 80s. But I say that those dark ages were the 2000s, and this has been the invisible renaissance of this 2010s, where so much bullshit is out there, but deep beneath the surface, under the veil of Tekashis and Cardi B's and all that kind of shit, you get actual MCing, actual technical skill, actual progressive works too. But my guest today reminded me immediately of the dark ages. Not because he's a piece of shit MC, he's incredible, but because one of the great things that happened from the 90s onto the 2000s is that the generation of us that was listening, we didn't just listen and say, a lot of us. We didn't listen and say, we got to make music that's like that or as good. We also took it upon ourselves to actually actualize a lot of the stuff that they may have been saying that was bullshit. That they may have been saying that really wasn't too hard, it just sounded fly. So when we heard brothers on wax and they talked about the knowledge of self, we wanted to record like them, we wanted to make music like them, but we also said, where do you get this knowledge of self? Where are we going to go to get that? And we found the school, found a law school in Mecca. We found Gods in the Street. We looked for that 7 in the center of the 8-point sun. But other aspects too. So we saw brothers, they was like, woo, they was putting the kung fu in there. And we said, yo, I don't want to just have kung fu samples of my shit. I actually want to know this kung fu shit. Why can't we know it? And brothers was learning kung fu for real. Learning Qi Kung, learning all these sciences. And everything manifested. There are a lot of idiots that decided to be gangsters because that's what they heard and that's what they weren't doing. But for the majority, there was an intellectual level of depth that we were seeking and searching. And what happened? I think that the grind that would have been placed to make music over a deteriorating industry was surfaced to the solo life of actually living out a lot of the great lyrics that were there. You know, and my guest today is the epitome of that. You know, my brother, Infinite Mind, an MC who I wrote the bio for years ago because I just thought he was so dope, because I never write a bio for anybody unless you pay me. And you got to be good. If you suck, I cannot sit there and write like, oh yeah, his trap is so good, the way he bounces off the trap drum and the way they flow and say nothing and make nothing out of something. But and that wasn't a miscue. I said nothing out of something. You know what I mean? But he always had. I like that word, and it always stuck with him and me when I describe him was the chiseled MC. You know, he has a sharp tone, a very sharp tone when he rhymes and stuff. And he embraced that essence of Killer Army. So when it was the army, the war, he was prepped for this war. I remember when I used to teach him at the school, he used to get so hyped, though, he'd stand up. And I said, yo, what's the problem? What's the problem, Infinite Mind? And he'd be like, no, I'm just hype. I need to stand while you build, God. I need to stand. And I was like, all right, yeah, you know, is it all right if I just sit down? Because, you know, I'm not going to stand for 4 hours here lecturing. But he was hyped, and he was living out that war. You know, we were the type of brothers that in 2000s when we was learning, we was walking Harlem with all the 18 weapons in our back. You know what I mean? Like, we was the ones walking with a spear and butterfly knives and shit, right? Where our bag was breaking because the weapons were not built for JanSport bags. You know what I'm saying? You know? So without further ado, man, this is who I'm introducing, though. The brother who we fought against Nuwabians talking mad bullshit in front of the Disney store. In front of the Disney store because they wouldn't bear witness, though, that the knowledge that they was bringing was not right and exact, you know? And we had references. We had Diop. We had Sertima. We had 120 lessons and shit. But my brother, Infinite Mind, though, the composer of Mike Divine Volume 1, right? The Secret Science LP, EP with Knowledge Born. My brother, Infinite Mind, is a pleasure to have you here,
Peace
man.
and blessings. It's a pleasure to be.
No
It's
doubt.
a pleasure to be here. I think you forgot to mention that you were my educator, man.
Oh, yeah.
I think you threw innuendos in there so people could catch on, but this is the brother that gave me knowledge, gave me 120. So
That's
he gave me my
peace.
universal flag. It was July 11th, 2002. I remember that. Never
That's
forget
peace,
that day.
God. That's peace, God.
Yeah.
You know, it all worked out in synergy. For the listener, when I mean literally did Kung Fu, we didn't just learn from our Sigung in New York City here. You know, with our Sigung Bobby Whitaker, he took it to other levels as well, and he literally went to China.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you see all those people doing flips and shit out in China and using staffs and shit, my brother was doing that. And he's still in the middle of doing that.
Yeah.
You know, he just told me that he was out here, and I said, you better come down to the studio right now. And it all segs with the show that we have today about LeBron's I Promise School and some of the repercussions of that and some of the possibilities of that as far as schooling for our people, you know? And before I get into with it, as far as Infinite Mind's music and all of that, we're going to get to the serious shit first.
Okay.
And we're going to dive into all of this idea about the LeBron School because I have been really disappointed with a lot of the podcasts about the LeBron I Promise School. It really shows that a lot of people in the woke community, they just read things on the surface. They don't ask things about the possibilities. They don't see, if they say something is immense, they don't really know why it's immense. And I'm sorry, him giving a bike and a helmet is actually not the great parts of this I Promise School program. You know, and people haven't really looked at it in depth and done the research. And a lot of people, especially the Woke Foundation, those at the Woke Foundation, right, paying dues at Sellout, all they've been talking about is, oh, look, this makes LeBron the GOAT over Michael Jordan, though, which is some of the most silly talk I've ever fucking heard. So I'm gonna comment on some things. I'm gonna ask my brother Infinite Mind to come in at certain junctures. But the first thing, right, I thought about, because this is gonna be the moniker for how I see so you can understand how I see the LeBron James I Promise School, because I think it's pretty immense, though, in a good way, and I think it's also an impossible possible that he's working to achieve here. So I have a lot of respect for it. But there's a lot of dynamic to it. And the way I immediately saw it, though, is it must have been because I was watching the old one, the old version, but I was like, he is, with those promises, I was like, he's Willy Wonka in the chocolate school factory. You know what I mean? Because I was like, Are you serious? You're gonna bring? Oh no, let's just in a devastated state. Let's just bring all the black kids that are at risk. Let's just take all the parents that are at risk, and we're just gonna help them up though, and walk them into a fantasy land where you can eat all the books, and you can chew on all the curriculum you need. You know, that's not the way the world works. So the first thing I want to get through to, because I was talking basketball talk, and a couple of episodes ago, I didn't even want to read it again to respect LeBron James for what he's been doing here. But after he choked in the finals, I'm sorry, that was a choke. You know what I'm saying? If I was in production of making an issue, a magazine, and somebody screwed up real bad, and I just stood there pointing at the J.R. Smith of production and publishing, and I said, hey, you were supposed to publish that article, and I'm just pointing to him, that would have been a massive fail. No, you go fill up the space. You know what I mean? And they had time to go to print. They had time to win the game. And then, you know, he had the boo-boo. You know, he had the
boo-boo.
He had the boo-boo in his hand. He said, look, I did this whole shit like that. And I was like, come on, man. And this is a history. Let me tell you something.
He's the Phil Sims of...
I'm going to preface this with AG the Coroner. AG the Coroner is one of the dopest LeBron haters in the universe, though. I give him number one on that, right? And he also gives a lot of perspective. So he said the greatest of all time debate when it comes to sport has always been about the sport. If Ali had never stood with the people, it doesn't take away from what he did in the ring. Gretzky could have been a murderer, and it wouldn't have changed what he did on the ice, though. I guess these are all white, right? But anyway, Serena could have been an asshole who stays to herself, and it wouldn't change what she's done on the tennis court. Tell that to Common. Tiger Woods went through a huge scandal, right? Doesn't take away from him being the greatest golfer of all time. And then AG concludes with, this new narrative was solely created to try and push Jordan out of that spot because as great as LeBron may be on the court, he isn't and never will be the greatest player, greater basketball player than MJ. When you can't win one way, they create another excuse. I personally agree with that. But here's the deeper jewels when you take away the veil of hater from what you're reading out of AG's statements here, you know? Muhammad Ali being the GOAT in his field is a perfect storm. We're dealing with a lot of perfect storms in our builds and in the fucking Medina weather that just killed us here. That's why we look like soaked. We look soaked here. You know what I mean? This wasn't like our homage to ancient Europe here. You know what I mean? Like no bathing throughout the summer months. You know what I mean? In the 1600s, you know? We got soaked here, coming here. But the perfect storm of Muhammad Ali was that, right, was that he was an incredible athlete, incredibly successful and dynamically successful. So he wasn't successful, he was dynamically successful, right? And then he also stood up for something that took all of his hype talk, all of his dynamic hype talk into play as now complete integrity. He really was what he said he was and what he could show in those highest moments in the ring. But here's the difference, though. Ali is an anomaly. That's why the word GOAT in sports, he's the first one that you name in all sports. Let's take it in hip-hop for a minute. In hip-hop, every GOAT candidate, from the pioneer GOATs like Rakim or KRS, or to later candidates you might name like Ghost and Nas, they all have flawed works. They all have albums where they experimented or just came off badly. And they're in their own innovation, there are failures, right? Ali had significant, as I said, Ali had significant ring losses, so the total body of his work is the way he won, the impact of his wins, and the integrity he stood for that impacted more wins. But that's rare. Like I said, it's an anomaly. For example, a perfect musical artist is Sade, right? Sade has no bad works. You know what I mean?
Artist of all time.
But if we actually count her like on all the levels and we go into technical abilities, it's nowhere near Sassy, Aretha, Phyllis Hyman, for example. So it's how we judge GOAT. Are they all the parameters, or just perfect products? You know what I mean? Like, how are we judging the way we go through about this? You know, the joke about LeBron versus MJ here is that a little research is showing is that MJ is more spook who sat by the door than what people think LeBron is, or what many hope Jay-Z might one day be. And I bring Jay-Z into this as a hip-hop thing because ultimately the dominance of winning, the unmatched creativity that stretched the art of the game, and the unique statistical dominance, right? This is something that Jordan had and can't be surpassed, you know? It's something that you can really separate the two. You'd have to overcome. You couldn't do something off the court to surpass that, you know? And in the game, though, you score to win, and no one did both together at this extreme level. Now, for LeBron's time, as far as activism, with people as Kaepernick existing and others on a grassroots community level, such as Jalen Rose with his own school, right? The things Carmelo Anthony has done, for example, they're all existing at the same time. So LeBron's wonderful efforts don't even make him an anomaly in the charitable world, the building in the community world. He's not an anomaly in it. He just may be its most high profile. And in due time, I think, might be the most largest because of the money value that he has, the money that he could put into it. But as far as playing, and as far as AG the coroner was talking about, none of that could take over the hump of atrocious chokes, pitiful flops, whines, injury cries he's shown in a court. As I said, you know, like, you've got to be a perfect combination, a perfect storm that makes you an anomaly that's never been seen before, and that's only on Lee. In all other fields, I don't think GOAT matches that. We're going to have GOATs that are just in the field. But let's go back, though, to something else, though. Another point that I noted, right, was the hidden hypocrisy of the promoted, right? And I couldn't let it go without doing this, though, right? If you compared LeBron and the greatest pop MC of all time, Jay-Z, right? The greatest, and also let's put some accolades on Jay-Z that he doesn't get. He's the greatest payoler of all time, right? You know, because not to be confused with the payolee, the receiver of the payola is Funkmaster Flex, right? Just put that in your head, right? That's my contention. He's the greatest payoler of all time. And Jay, he's also the inventor of the pretty hiccup. You know what I mean? You know, the That's Jay-Z. Give him the credit where he's due. He's also the man that sampled Glenn Frey and was saved by DJ Premier, though, on other tracks, right? The man that helped gentrify Brooklyn, then wooed and woed on missing the old Brooklyn on Marcy Me, right? So these are the things that we have. But the comparison between the two is that Jay and LeBron are extreme promoters of themselves. Jay will promote his greatest humanitarian achievements, and he does it all absolve the musical diluting, the musical themes. You know what I mean? And here's what I mean, though. We champion the spook who sat by the door, but the spook in this case programmed millions with capitalism's worst ethos, rugged individualism. That's rugged individualism. You know, it's all about me. I got to get that money. That's how I win. I win, 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 right? All we do is win, right? And a whole host of shitty songs are birthed because of that, right? When it's framed that way, and then this benevolence is based on social benevolence, right? Which is the entirely opposite ethos. So their social work is benevolent, but their music is not. So what happens here is we rap Scrooge McJigger, we swim in the money, we take it all cost, and by any means necessary, but truly can outwardly praise him is the charity to thousands. So it's basically a give and take. The trade-off of selling shit ideas to millions and charity to thousands is as American as it gets, right? I'll give you another example, though, because we're getting deep on this guy, right? I'm a writer. I love to write, but it's based on a fact that I love to read, right? Books are a treasure to me. You know Infinite Mind. That's all I talk about it all the time, right? Yes, sir. And the public library is actually crucial to my upbringing, and specifically in New York City, right? So I wouldn't be me if it wasn't for the reality of having to go to the public library, just like most people, really, right? But it was Andrew Carnegie that did that. One of the greatest blood-sucking industrialists of all time, who ended his life with philanthropy and established the New York Public Library. Because we wouldn't get free books if it wasn't for his work there. So, but when we dig deeper into Andrew Carnegie, we also see something called the Andrew Carnegie dictum, right? Dictum, pause, doesn't mean that, okay? It means his ideas, right? His basic, his ethos, his way of life, like his 3 conditions of life, right? And I'll show you why it harms, though. So he gave the libraries, but then he said, this is what you have to do. And this is what Jay-Z and others have done. To spend the first third of one's life getting all the education one can. And don't think Jay-Z didn't get education, though. That is a very learned man in the ciphers he was. You know, it doesn't matter whether you go to school. It matters where you're learning and whether you're learning. The second one was to spend the next third of your life making all the money one can. And then the third was to spend the last third giving it all away for worthwhile causes, right? I find this to be a grafted version of Balthazar Grassi and the 17th century Jesuit priest ideas. And I'm more in line with Balthazar's that I'm going to recite now, because I don't bear witness to spending a third of my life getting money, because that will never end. And it hasn't ended. It doesn't end for people. Balthazar said this, right? For a beautiful life, spend the first act in conversation with the dead. We're born to know and to know ourselves, and books turn us faithfully into people. Spend the second act with the living. Behold all that is good and in the world. Not all things are found in one region, right? In distributing the dowry, the universal father, he gets a little mystery shit here, right? The universal father, blah, 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 sometimes gave wealth to his ugliest daughter, right? They're just trying to be slick with it, though. But the third act belongs entirely to you. To philosophize is the highest delight of all. But that doesn't say it. Another translation reads this way as the third one. To live in the mind is the ultimate good fortune of man. Now, both of those really mean that the third thing is to spend the rest of your life composing thought and creating from that seasoned, solitary thought. So you spend your life learning, you spend your life seeing, and you spend your life creating. That's how I've always seen it. And I think that when we go back to Carnegie's number 2, spend a third of your life making as much money as you can, that has been the most American idea that has never ended. It never ends, and it never ends for anyone. You know, to put that in perspective here with LeBron, and I compare and contrast, I don't consider LeBron deviant in that manner. I think as a player with such talent, he's had a career plagued with all the things I've said. However, in this case, he is promoting all of his good to further his good, and I see that as a positive thing, God. You know, this school can gain more investments in this manner, and it's going to have to, because he's still using taxpayers' money for about, I think he's paying like 2 out of the 8 million, so he's still going to need more money. So if one researches clearly, he spent years, LeBron has spent years coordinating with the broader economic and Cleveland community. I think his work here is going to be a blueprint worth studying for either the level of assimilation versus the innovation, the wave of students that graduate will give to the society.
You said it right there.
You know what I mean?
You said
Like,
it right there.
what type of students will come out of this, guys?
You said it right there, dude.
You know what I mean?
The word was already in the back of my head. The word assimilation was already there, and it's been there since the beginning.
Because
since
I
since
did
you told
some
me we can have
research.
an article,
Exactly.
a discussion on this school. The first thing that came to my head was the concept of assimilation. But go ahead.
You know, the thing was, right, and let me finish this point and I get you in, right? Just to give the listeners some facts, because there's been a bad array of facts, because we deal with so many meme myths. You know, people deal with meme myths. You know, that's why, like, when I saw the LeBron I Promise meme, I went and checked to see if it was actually his own or someone else made it. But a lot of times the self-promotion that is good on one person's account leads to other people being trashed for not being good self-promoters. So people like Jalen Rose with his Leadership Academy, and the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy in Detroit, or even Jordan's work. You know, let's take a pause here. Jordan did not invest in private prisons. That was an Oregon man named Michael Jordan who invested in prisons. Okay, that is a meme myth. In fact, Jordan has been paying for scholarships for youth for years already in this decade. So most of his philanthropy has come in this decade. I think if we talk about spook who sat by the door, we also have to see who's still being hidden as a spook. And in many ways, we can never tell if the spook is going to be righteous. But we can also say that they're still behind the door. And in many ways, Jordan has been behind the door. A lot of people think because he's the GOAT, right, that it's easy to go own a sports team. But if you study what he went through with the Wizards, play for 2 years, get the money up for the Washington Wizards, and then got screwed because then they said, nah, we don't need you anymore. And they didn't give him the rights to ownership in there. So he had to go another route and go to the Hornets. Now you know why Jordan, if he was going to be philanthropic outright, wouldn't do that. You know? And then recently, Trump made that tweet where he tried to do the divide and conquer. And he said, I like Mike, but LeBron is dumb, and so is Dom Lemon. But all MJ said was that I support LJ. And that's all he needed to say because he's never had to say anything else, you know? You've got to watch what these people do because a lot of times the money that we see, we don't see all the money that changes hands and shit, you know? But aside from all those myths and all that, I'm going to list for the listener to have it in your head the things that have been promised for the full-fledged school, and I'm going to turn to Infinite Mind of what his thoughts on it, right? And the reason is because Infinite Mind is not only a martial artist certified by so many teachers in Wing Chun, Chinese Kung Fu from China, our Sigung, Bobby Whitaker out in Brooklyn, but he's also been an educator for 11 years in the Jersey public school system.
Yes, I have.
You know? So here's the list that he promised, though. And it was eventually, they say it's eventually going to go from 3rd and 4th grade.
That's
Right?
Right.
And expand from 1st to 8th grade. So I know there's a lot of commentary there because if you really know your education, though, as far as public schools, the 3rd and 4th grade are really where things start to dim for our youth, our black and brown youth. They start to lose interest in school. You know what I mean? And that's why LeBron concentrated on those specific years to start. But the list goes like this. He's giving free tuition, free uniforms, free bicycle and helmet, free transportation if you live within 2 miles of the school, free breakfast, lunch, and snacks, which will also include a free pantry, a free food pantry for families. So let's say families don't have enough for dinner. They can go into that pantry and select certain things. GEDs and job placement services for the parents, right? And guaranteed tuition to the University of Akron for every student who graduates, right? Now, I'm not going to tell you what one of the guards I asked, though, who's also an educator, who educated in Brooklyn, and I actually did, as a hip-hop writer, I did a career day with his school as a hip-hop writer, and I saw the type of youth that he was dealing with, and I saw what he was doing that was extremely unorthodox and trying to fit it in there. And I'm going to ask that question to you, Infinite Mind.
Okay.
Is this shit possible? Dealing with the school system, this list seems nearly impossible.
Yeah.
How is it possible to do all this? Because you don't just need the school system in line with you. You need the outer community at large. You need businesses that are willing to invest, willing to hire. So you need schools that will deal with at-risk youth, but you need businesses that are willing to invest in at-risk parents. Yeah. At-risk youth got at-risk parents.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about public education that a lot of people don't know about, and this is the reason why most likely LeBron went charter. But even if he went charter, he's still regulated by the state government and still in some shape, form, or fashion by the federal government. Each state regulates their form of education according to the way they see fit. However, the federal government will still regulate upon that in some shape, form, or fashion because the federal government always supersedes the state government. The thing with state governments today is that everything is based on standardized testing, and charter schools are not an exception. Funding is given to each school based on the test scores that the school receives. So if the schools are not receiving good test scores, they're not getting money like that, at least not in the state of New Jersey. If they do it in other states, I don't really know anything about that. I simply strongly doubt it. But in the state of New Jersey where I work, the state government allocated more money to the schools that were more successful in their test scores. So they were shutting down programs for at-risk students such as vocational schools, hands-on training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And many people want to go towards charter schools because charter schools is both private and public. So you seek private funds in an area where the public funds lack. You know what I mean? But to retort your question, to really put more emphasis on it, what kind of businesses are going to invest in these students if, like, what's in it for them? You know what I mean? What at the end of the day, what is in it for them? If a corporation is investing in at-risk, you know, and we're talking about a corporation that, you know, if it's
Philanthropic. Yeah.
There we go. If it's philanthropic, that's something different because a lot of that shit is written off anyway. You know what I mean? You can write that off in your taxes. But really, is there going to be a legitimate investment in at-risk students who come from impoverished communities to get these kids to uplift?
Because a lot of the idea here,
Mm-hmm.
there's two things there. The first one from before is that when it talks about standardized tests, if you really research Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, which was dealing with high school kids and trying to get them ready for college,
Right.
a lot very similar to the program that was a major core of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths.
Yes,
when
sir.
the gods had, we
Trade
got
schools.
a law school Mecca, and they had programs originally in the law school of Mecca to get the gods where they could be good enough and have enough schooling so they could make it to college. And a lot of the great elders were able to go through that program and then get to college. But Jalen Rose's Leadership Academy, if you just do simple Google research and Wikipedia reading, went through a lot of hardships because
got
the
shut
kids
down.
that they were dealing with are very behind. And if they don't get up in time, they're not going to get the resources and the monies that they need.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how many ball players and everything is investing in it. And that was in Detroit. And the last I checked, Detroit and Akron are at the same level of poverty, you know, give or take. So it's a good comparison of the two.
And where are they going to end up? In the system.
Right. And the other thing is this, right? I've never seen a school offer at-risk. You're offering the parents, which means that you're offering at-risk parents. If you've ever been in any corporate environment, especially, the way human resources works is that they try to find any reason why you cannot live and die for the corporation. You know, and if you cannot live and die for the corporation, even if you're just applying for a 9-to-5, if you say what kind of extracurricular activities you do, they say, you know, I like to make music on the side. And they say, is that music going to get in the way of you doing this job? I was like, yo, this is 9-to-5. I have a life beyond this. You know what I'm saying?
They
And
ask
that's
you
why
hobbies,
even,
right?
even having children, they ask hobbies so they could snatch you. You know what I mean? Right? Sons of bitches.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, and then, and then, and then, if even in a lot of corporate environments, though, even having children mars you because it's like, you're going to be spending time with children. We're going to have to do this because listen, you know what goes along with helping at-risk parents? You got to have daycare. You got to have daycare in the Akron school because if you got at-risk children, trust me, they don't come alone. Not in the world we came in. No. At-risk children, like, yeah, it's a whole school, 800 kids, and they're all single, you know, only children. You know what I mean? Nah, that's not how it works. So if you're gonna get a job from mom, you got to get some daycare from mom. If you're gonna have the kids in there from 8 to 5. These are not innovations, though. The Jalen Rose Academy, for example, went 8 to 4:30. So that's pretty much trying to stretch the day out.
Yeah. I think they're trying to expand school years.
Yeah.
Using LeBron's programs.
And I think Jalen Rose's went 11 months. Goes 11 months. You know. So my thing is this, guy. Like, is why I said he's Willy Wonka in the Chocolate School Factory because this is a lot of shit. This is a lot of fantasy here.
Yeah.
How is he going to achieve this? And if he achieves it, it's one of the greatest achievements. It's Booker T. Washington level.
Ooh.
Because to achieve this in this day and time, though, you also have the problem this. Let's say you get graduates and they all go to University of Akron. Universities like a diversity because they get a diversity of intelligence and a diversity of excellence. And not only do they care about people paying for the tuition, but they also care about the quality of greatness that comes out of the university so they can be lauded. You know, there's a possibility that these first generations, though, will not be on the highest levels. And they won't be as ahead as other potential, you know, high school graduates that are applying to college. So how much will they take? I could see this University of Akron saying, you know, you've been in LA too long, LeBron. We're going to get these other kids, though, because they better. And because of your school, what happens when LeBron is now making Akron more popular to go to? Then now the kids at the I Promise school, you know what I'm saying, are going to have to deal with more competition to get into the University of Akron. You know, so that's what I'm saying. Like, what is a word is bond? What is a promise? worth here when so many integrated and overlapping institutions
I wonder
come
if he
into
took
play?
any of these concepts into consideration. Did he have a statistician with him? Who are the people in his ear that are going to discuss? Or do they really just care that they're really just supplying financially to the school, and they're supplying the student who is the type of student who is the major commodity to corporate America?
Right.
Yeah, you know, which
Absolutely.
is the young
And by
black
the
youth.
way, here's a side note, Dart, because a lot of jokes were about Umar Johnson not doing his school yet,
Yeah.
and LeBron's ahead of him.
Right.
Those shits are funny, right? But here's the thing, right?
Supposed to be
Umar
my
Johnson
daddy's
never
school.
been in my wavelength of a school anyway. Because Umar Johnson, when he was asked about teaching Latinos, whether they're black and something, and like they're not Afro enough and they can't bear witness to their black history or their black blood, he was saying that they're too hard to teach and I don't intend on teaching any Latinos. Well, you know what? Fuck you then.
A lot of Afrocentric scholars are like that.
Here's the thing.
So-called
If you want a school, it means you have a school based on teachers, and teachers teach. So I never heard no teacher say, I can't teach that. You know what I'm saying? That means you're weak from the get. So you take your weak ass and make your tiny school somewhere else. Because the point of teaching is to teach those who cannot be taught.
Yeah.
That's what at-risk youth means.
Yeah. Word is bond.
The children that are at risk are also
That's what the
the
father
hardest
did.
to teach.
That's what the father did.
You know what I
He
mean?
got the down protruding. He got the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
man.
the downtrodden, the worst of the
Yeah.
worst. He didn't go and take a hike up to City College and say, what's your GPA? I'm going to teach you the knowledge of self. You know, like sign up for this credit card and the knowledge of self if you want to get it now. You know? He was taking the brothers that was boosting, that was doing crimes on the street, right? That was running from the cops, literally,
The word is bond. Yeah.
and saying, yo, come over here. I'm going to teach you something. And if that's not at-risk building, then I don't know what is. I mean, it's the ultimate model of it. You know what I mean?
A lot of people, they
Yeah,
take on this
and
bougie mindset.
if some people wonder about the curriculum, we're supposed to. And if some people, like I saw some podcast, they were saying like it's like the Power episode because, you know, Ghost is just the face of the foundation and it's really Lawrence Tate's character that's really running the shit. Of course, because LeBron is just the face. But at the same time, though, I think two things. Michelle Campbell is really the heart of that program, and that program started before it was a school, and she's not black. She's not brown. So I want to know what her curriculum is. You know what I'm saying? Now, at the same time, I do respect LeBron's judgment here to say that he put all that work in to give it a go. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, I'm rooting for that.
Yeah.
I never rooted for LeBron as a player, but I'm really rooting for this, though, because it could be a model for all of us to have schools on many levels.
Depending on the theory of education that he's going to use. Because if he's taking them through 1 through 8, you know, there's theories in education where a teacher follows you from K through 8. You know what I mean? And if instead of just jumping around, instead you got one teacher for 11 months, and you know, because there's certain hours within a day you got to take ADD, ADHD into consideration, and I'm not just talking about it as a disease, because they didn't call that shit that when I was in the 80s, and I didn't have ADD or ADHD. I just wasn't fucking paying attention, because I'm a dreamer, man. What's wrong with that? You know, are you going to be able to cater to your dreamers? Are you going to be able to cater to your focusers? Are you going to be able to cater to the different types of environment of this? Like, how many students do you expect to have in a classroom? Can one teacher deal with how many students? You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about 800 students, you know, hypothetically. How many teachers are dealing with these 800 students? You know what I mean? Is it getting properly distributed? Because when I was in a classroom full of 25 kids, there's no way in hell anything was properly getting done. And the only ones that were paying attention were the ones that were getting their ass kicked at home if they weren't bringing good grades.
Right.
You know
So
what I
the
mean?
small classroom is key, and the small classroom is always more and more expensive to hold.
It's difficult.
You know, we also think of conspiracies with this stuff, but I think of the positive conspirator. The conspiracy is this. The reality, the Amos Wilson factor.
Okay.
You know, when you look at the psychology of the black child and the Awakening the Genius of Black Children books that Amos Wilson wrote, the speed by which the black child learns has always been abnormally above the white child in America. That's an actual fact coming from Reconstruction on, you know? And when people talk about, oh, he won't be able to make this, he won't be able to do this, this is where I really look with excitement to see the positivity of the black child given some kind of form to just excel.
Right.
You know, and I think in a short amount of time, though, we could see a lot, though, if he can hold that promise, those promises in check for that short amount of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really think it can be done, though, you know? So on that note, though, let's switch up. We gave a lot of thoughts on the I Promise School. You let me know yours. Leave some comments in the SoundCloud. You know what I mean? Let us know at S.STREET Media on the Instagram, or go to S.TREET on Facebook. But there's also what I was talking about, the travels of the MC, from the knowledge of self to the martial arts, right? And I talked about the classic era, but I talked about MCs in this era really taking it upon themselves to live out those things. And no one has lived those things out more so than you, God.
Thank
you know, and tell us something about that journey, how it's been, though, you know?
Well, as you know, being my educator, and some of the things that you said that I laughed at because it's true. It's like whenever there was certain things, certain information, or it was something about the adrenaline that I felt in my body, this form of energy, this chi, every time truth was given to me, this awakening. And I've always wanted to take it a step further, you know what I mean? So when I got knowledge of self, I always took it to the next levels. I was always out in the streets, like trying to teach, going hard in the streets, going hard here, going hard there. And I was a high school dropout. You mentioned that I was an educator for the public school system for 11 years. A lot of people don't know this. I was a high school dropout before I dropped back in. I dropped back in at the age of 19 and was able to get my high school diploma at the age of 20 through an alternative program that, like vocational schools. And I was able to teach at those alternative programs, and I was able to see what made that successful and what didn't. But what was key in that is that I met a teacher there who gave me the elements that were needed in order to lead me towards knowledge of self, and I met certain individuals in that school that created a mentorship program, which also led me towards the knowledge of myself, towards seeking knowledge, through the 5% Nation, or as we know as the Nation of Gods and Earths. Another key element besides that system, besides the vocational system, was hip-hop and music. Music has always been our education in some shape, form, or fashion. This is the reason why me and you are sitting down right now having a conversation. Hip-hop brought us together. You know what I mean? And truth was conveyed through music in such a way that it became such an inspiration that every time I hear music as an artist, it makes me want to, it gives me movement. That's why we call it hip-hop. You know what I'm saying? It gives me a hop to it. You know what I mean? So, like, I'll hear something, I'll hear you speak truth, and I got to hop to it, and I'm like, yo, man, and it's like, there was certain things that first and foremost, it wasn't just things that you told me. It was the lifestyle, the culture, and how you were living the culture. Because I didn't know too many gods who were taking it to the length and the level that you were taking it to. You were changing the whole diet concept, and you were making sense when you said it. You said, if I'm the god, why would I be eating dead things? And I was like, damn, I didn't really, I didn't take those type of things into consideration, man. Like, we over here talk about we God, but we eating dead. We're not eating life. We're not eating things that are going to give us life, So because of that, I ended up changing my diet. It was based on inspiration, and so I hopped. You know what I'm saying? Like the hip, I hopped on it. So I hopped on that concept, and I hopped on nutrition. And the type of person that you are, the individual that you are, you always, as this is where I probably get my characteristics from, is that you take it a step further. So you went and you started getting all these health books, and you don't need a degree to understand nutrition and to understand diet and to understand your body, because at the end of the day, a nutritionist is not going to know your body better than you know your own body. So what you did was you took nutritional education to another level by applying it to yourself, and you experimented. You experimented with supplements, what worked, what didn't work, and I started to see you do that, and so I did that. You know what I'm saying? In the concept of following what your teacher does through an example. So every single thing that was presented to me through you and through the knowledge of self has always forced me in self-enforcement to take it to the next level. So it was always a dream growing up, watching Saturday morning Kung Fu movies, to train like Gordon Liu did and Enter the 36 Chambers. You know what I mean? That was just a dream of mine. And to hear it in hip hop music, through Wu-Tang and such was an inspirational feeling in and of itself. But in 2006, when social media started to explode and you got MySpace and things like that, I met somebody who actually told me about Wudang Mountains. And I'm thinking, like, Wudang, like, you know what I'm saying? The only Wudang I know is the Wu-Tang, the Wu-Tang Clan. Little did I know that Wu-Tang named themselves not just after the movies, but the Wudang was actually a place. When you see a movie like Shaolin vs. Wu-Tang, Wudang was actually a place that was started by a man by the name of Zhang Shenfeng, who founded Taoism and Tai Chi in that mountain region. And in 2006, I found out that there were schools that were set up there for foreigners and people to come and learn at those schools. And I was like, say what? Like, I didn't even know about this. You know what I mean? So I started doing more and more research on it. And I knew I wanted to head in that direction, man. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't difficult either, man. It really just takes the type of dedication. It depends on what's in your soul and what's in your heart, man. And what was in my heart was like, I needed to get this done, man, because every time I hear truth, it surges the energy in my body, man, that just makes me want to move towards it even stronger. So when I saw, I see truth in the martial arts and the expression of self. What I see when I see martial arts is an expression of self. It's an expression. So you got knowledge of self, but within the knowledge of ourselves, within our nation, we always taught what is called self-styled wisdom. And martial arts is a self-styled wisdom, because each individual's physiology moves in accordance to their own personal individualism. So me and you are Allah, but you're Sunya is Allah, I'm infinite mind Allah, and the way that I express that is in this shape, form, or fashion, and the way you express that is in this shape, form, or fashion. That's what makes you the skill illustrator. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, and we're both practitioners of martial arts. We both come from the same school, the Three Treasures Martial Arts Association. Right. And so seeing, and training with the brothers in the Three Treasures Martial Arts Association, which we developed. This is the beginning of the regional development in the nation, and we were the first regional development to form the GOD security, and we were passed the baton from the earlier GOD securities, Dark Eminem, and they passed that baton over, and we grabbed that baton and we took it to the next level by incorporating a kung fu way of life. Like we lived the modern day Shaw Brothers flick. You know what I mean? If you understand, Shaw Brothers history and the movie production and how they, Shaw Brothers Productions was around since the 1920s. They owned an island off the coast of Hong Kong, and they basically just allowed their actors to run free and just create. I mean, the movies sucked when it came to, you know what I'm saying, like storyline and theater and shit like that. But the choreography of it, because they just invited, this is around the time in the 1970s, martial artists started becoming actors, and before that in the 60s they were actors who were trying to practice martial arts. But with the birth of Lar Carl Jung becoming the choreographer of many of these movies, many of martial artists became actors themselves, and their acting sucked, but the choreography was incredible, and we were inspired by that to the point where we were living like those people. So just to take you through really quick, because I know we don't have that much time, just to take you through a time frame of what we used to do. You know what I'm saying? We used to have political education and civilization classes on Thursday, and then you know what I'm saying? That would be like a fasting time for most of us.
My course,
and then Saturday we would all meet up in Mount Morris Park, which looked like the Shaolin Temple in the middle of Harlem. You know what I'm saying? And we would train there all day, 8 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? And then we would march down 125th Street. We would build with every single group that you saw had a book stand, a food stand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they knew who we were because we were coming in the numbers of like 20s and 30s. We were like 20 deep, 30 deep sometimes. And we would walk all the way down to the A train, hop on the train, go end up in Chinatown, and go end up eating at Vegetarian Paradise 3. Or if not, if we didn't have money like that, we just ended up gathering nickels and dimes, going to somebody's house like Supreme House or Knowledge Peace House, and end up cooking in the kitchen while watching a Shaw Brothers movie. You know what I'm saying? It was like it was a Shaw Brothers film, man.
It really was.
We were in
and
the
you know,
kitchen
when I go on the air and I say that I was wearing geese
we
all
were
throughout
rocking
that's all
geese,
we
man.
wore.
That's all we wore. And we were sparring in the kitchen while cooking. Like, you know what I'm saying? With kitchen knives and kitchen utensils, man. So, like, we were living a modern day Shaw Brothers flick, man.
Yeah,
and
it was tea all day, yeah.
And
Baji.
Baji, and that's the thing that inspired me to end up going to China and take it to the next level, because I was like, I ain't gonna stop. You know what I mean? I know, like, eventually we all got older, so we weren't gonna continue to hang out the way we used to hang out.
And the thing is, right? It never dropped off as we built, the love for the MC and that original expression. And Infinite Mind has had Mike Divine Volume 1. He's had the EP, The Secret Science,
And
with
the Voice of a Rebel,
not,
if you remember, which was after La Vol Revolt.
That's right, yeah. But these are works that last came 2012, early in this decade. I want to end off with you just dropping some bars, guys.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You want to do this acapella? I'll do this
Yeah,
really
however
quick
you,
acapella.
yeah.
Check it. Yo. All right, so basically when I was in China, I had the opportunity to write a lot of things on the mountains. So here we go. Yo. There's intelligence in an electron. My chi rising like it's DEFCON, swinging broadswords until your head gone, iron palm to your Teflon until your chest gone. Respect God. I'm blessed on the altar of rulers I'm about to step on. The totem pole, hold the globe, unfurl the scrolls of older souls who wrote in codes while sitting on a golden throne with roses thrown upon my feet, writing poems upon that sheet of paper. While puffing on that vapor, I'm practicing with my saber. Balancing, pulling, push. I'm smoking that burning bush. Walked from Kemet to Kush. I'm reading the deepest books. Wonder why the Sphinx looks far beyond the horizon. Align the pyramids of Giza with the belt of Orion. See the constellation Leo in the shape of a lion. How they worship sun temples like the Incas and Mayans. See the connection. Immaculate conception that's destined. We resurrecting. The mental dead quoting 120 lessons. What a blessing. Breathing the breath of life in the night. Gives me sight beyond sight, inhaling particles of light, feeling rejuvenation, ascending illumination, building accumulations, transcending hallucinations. I'm drinking that ayahuasca, open my 7 chakras, electrocution that shocks you. Nothing's gonna stop us. Practice Baduan Jin, the I Jing Jing, the Shi Swing Jing, the I Ching, wisdom of 3 kings. My muscle tendon is changing, chemistry's rearranging. I'm washing my bone marrow, my body is never aging. It's amazing. Sun gazing, blunt blazing, flood pavement with the people we standing as one nation. Descendant of the ancient, this is thicker than blood. This is the lotus, growing out the filthiest mud. Like them bums on my block, dropping jewels, sipping suds of them beers in them clubs, or them thugs pussing drugs, busting slugs from them guns. The definition of love, the attraction that exists between the earth and the sun. Giving birth to the one, you haven't heard it's begun. I'm like a butcher killing beats. When I murder, it's done. Ha!
Woo! That was Infinite Mind, man. Yo, where can they contact you?
Infinite 7 Mind. Anything you want to
Infinite
Google, YouTube.
7, the number 7
number
Mind.
7, yeah, Infinite
Yeah,
God
look that
Mind.
up, though, man.
Yeah.
Look that up. Definitely coming with more stuff. Definitely bother him about making music, you know? But with that said, there was a lot of knowledge dropped today. There were a lot of ideas. Rewind to get these ideas. That's why it's recorded and stuff. And any questions, comments, let us know about it. This is an ongoing conversation about the school, but it's also an ongoing conversation about hip-hop.
Yes, sir.
All right? So until the next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. I'm your host, Sunez, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.
Peace.
I don't understand. Clean or dirty?
Nah, you ain't getting over on the people. Talking all that gang, 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 we don't believe you. Around the money and the women, we don't see you. Seeing is believing, you can see we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Seeing is believing, you can see we don't believe you. If you ain't talking about the money, then we not gonna move. Yeah, you niggas might pull it, but you not gonna shoot. I finally got in the game, they know I'm not gonna lose. You be claiming you put in work, but you ain't got no proof, nigga. Flow tighter than half of these niggas' jeans. Having trouble understanding what half of these niggas mean. Pull up on your shorty, I'm snatching her off the scene. And I'm ragging your little queen and I'm passing it to the team, nigga. Yeah, that kitty steak sauce A1. And tonight I'm probably killing till the day come. You know that pissing them off is one of my habits. I could turn you to a target for the practice. I got a shooter that's 21, he a savage. He come with that little Uzi like Kodak, picture the damage. For the price of a package, he take advantage. It's nothing he couldn't manage, so you at a disadvantage. Nah, you ain't getting over on the people. Talking all that gang, 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 we don't believe you. Around the money and the women, we don't see you. Seeing is believing, you can see we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Seeing is believing, you can see we don't believe you. I'm the talk of the town and they old news. I be stunting on the haters in all of my interviews. Listen, every one of you jokers got me amused. I'ma win while I stay in my zone like I'm Syracuse, nigga. They say that oil and water, it don't mix. All these squares trying to get in my circle, they don't fit. My mama, she always told me to fight and you never quit. And because you throwing punches don't mean you can take a hit, nigga. I'm built for it, I got a hunger for more. The reason I'm looking down your ceiling is my floor, homie. I make them think of how the game was before. They saying I'm Christopher with a little bit of Shakur, nigga. Yeah, I was unfamiliar, now they know me. They was getting over, now I got them paying what they owe me. I might have gave you a pound, but you don't know me. If you the realest nigga living, gotta show me. Nah, you ain't getting over on the people. Talking all that gang, 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 we don't believe you. Around the money and the women, we don't see you. Seeing is believing, you can see we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Nah, my nigga, we don't believe you. Seeing is believing, you can see